The stars unraveled around them as the Dauntless dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a low, harmonic thrum. Commander Arya Vale stared out from the viewport of the command deck, breath caught in her throat. Before them, suspended in orbit above a gas giant, floated a structure that defied every human understanding of engineering. It was more than a ship, more than a station. It resembled a throne carved from dark matter and glass, pulsating with a soft inner glow, miles across in every direction. No one spoke for a full 30 seconds. Then Lieutenant Kess broke the silence. "I don't even know what shape that is." "Neither does physics," murmured Dr. Lin, the ship's science officer, eyes locked on the scanning instruments. Arya exhaled and turned to her crew. "They invited us here. Let's not act surprised when they make an entrance." The message had come 6 months ago, transmitted in a language that seemed to translate itself the more they studied it. The words, if they could be called that, weren't just instructions. They were expectations, spoken with a voice that assumed superiority without effort. "Come to the throne. It is time to reclaim what was lost." Reclaim. That word had stayed with Arya. It implied ownership. It implied history. It implied Earth had a debt to pay. Now, as docking clamped from the throne station, no one dared call it anything else. Wrapped around the Dauntless like fingers of a god, she knew the time for questions was over. The airlock hissed open with no fanfare. Waiting in the corridor was a figure tall enough to nearly scrape the ceiling. It was humanoid, but not human. Its armor appeared grown rather than forged, organic plates laced with circuitry and faintly luminous veins. No face, just a visor that shimmered with unreadable symbols. It said nothing, only turned and walked. Arya followed, flanked by Kess and Lin, and behind them, an armed escort of 6 Marines. Their boots echoed along the polished obsidian-like floor. The walls around them breathed. Every few steps, light pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. They entered a vast chamber with a transparent ceiling that looked out upon the swirling atmosphere of the gas giant. Standing in a perfect line were 5 other armored beings, each distinct in form yet united by a symmetry of design. They were not soldiers, not guards. They were icons. Between them, descending a ramp of liquid silver, came a woman. She was unlike anything Arya had imagined. Human in shape, yes, perfectly so. Blonde hair drifted weightlessly as if in low gravity, and her eyes shimmered with a kind of impossible clarity. She wore armor that left little to the imagination, yet somehow radiated authority more than seduction. Every motion she made was deliberate, every glance measured. When she reached the center of the chamber, the armored icon stepped back in synchronized grace. The woman raised her hand. "I am the Empress Ascendera. You are late." Arya stepped forward, suppressing the instinct to respond defensively. "We came as fast as your instructions allowed." A smile touched the Empress's lips, thin and unreadable. Instructions were not for travel. They were for awakening. Arya chose her next words carefully. "Humanity doesn't know what it's waking up to. Indeed, that is why I summoned you." She circled Arya slowly, like a curator studying a fragile relic. "You carry echoes, fragments of what you once were. It is quaint." Kess tensed behind her. Arya caught the motion and shot him a quick glance. "Stand down. We were told," Arya said, turning toward the Empress, "that you're part of something called the Empire. We're here to understand what that means and why you're interested in us." "Understand?" The Empress laughed, and it was not cruel, but almost genuinely amused. "No, you are not here to understand. You are here to decide." Dr. Lin stepped forward cautiously. "Decide what exactly?" "To rejoin." The word hung in the air like a suspended blade. "You believe we were part of your empire?" Arya asked. "You are an offshoot, one of many seated in distant cradles. During the age of seeding, you were forgotten as others were lost. But now you stir again. So I have come. And if we choose not to rejoin..." The chamber grew quieter. Even the ambient hum of the station systems seemed to hold its breath. The Empress did not blink. "Then you may remain what you are. Primitive, divided, mortal." There was no overt threat in her voice, but the weight of inevitability pressed behind every syllable. "I'd like to speak with your leaders," Arya said, searching for an edge, any leverage. "You can't possibly speak for an entire empire." The Empress turned slowly, her gaze colder now. "There are no others. I am Empire." Arya felt the floor tilt beneath her, not physically, but philosophically. If this being was telling the truth, then the structure they stood in, the culture behind it, was not just vast but centralized. A single will at its helm, unchanging, eternal. She took a breath. "Then it's only fair you meet ours. Earth has billions of people, cultures, voices. You can't expect." "I expect nothing," the Empress interrupted. "I offer." She raised one hand, and the floor between them shimmered. A pillar of light erupted, revealing holograms of entire star systems, each marked with symbols and shifting colors. Tiny human forms appeared within them, some clearly augmented, some still organic, interacting, creating, transcending. It was a vision of perfection, of peace, of compliance. "This is ascendancy," she said. "All who join become more. Your war against time, disease, and death, it ends. You will never fear again, never suffer, never forget." Behind Arya, one of the Marines let out a quiet gasp. Kes whispered, "Gods help us. It's beautiful." But Arya saw something else. The unity of these images was too uniform. No deviation, no chaos, no choice. "Your offer is generous," Arya said, "but change without consent is conquest." The Empress regarded her with the calm of a glacier. "Then you may keep your consent, and your entropy." Suddenly, the floor beneath the hologram shifted again, revealing another projection. This one was Earth, not as it was now, but as it could become, split by civil unrest, environmental collapse, resource wars. It was a mirror, held up with surgical cruelty. "You will return," the Empress said, "and you will see. The fracture has already begun." Without waiting for a response, she turned and walked away. The icons followed her, each footstep ringing like bells of judgment. Arya stood alone, her team frozen in silence. The light around them dimmed, the chamber sealed. Dr. Lin's voice trembled. "We're not going to survive her mercy, are we?" Arya didn't answer. She was thinking about the stars beyond the throne world, about Earth's fragile alliances, its politics, its pride. She was thinking about what it meant to be human, and whether that would be enough. When the escort returned to lead them back to the Dauntless, no one spoke. Even Kess's usual cynicism was buried beneath layers of disbelief. Back aboard their ship, as they undocked and began the slow, silent return to the edge of the system, Arya sat alone in her quarters, recording her log. "We've made contact with something beyond us, not just in power, but in purpose. They call it an empire. I call it a warning. We were not offered a place. We were given a choice to become or be left behind." She paused, watching the void on her display. "And I don't know which would be worse." The Dauntless re-entered Sol orbit like a ghost ship, its sleek frame scorched with atmospheric friction, its calm silent until clearance was demanded. Earth Command had expected a report, not a diplomatic reckoning. Commander Arya Vale stood before the Council 3 days later, a sea of stone-faced delegates and digital proxies seated around a ring of gleaming alloy. Behind her, translucent holopanels projected recordings of the Empress Ascender's message. Her presence, her demand, her promise. "You're telling us," said General Marcus Ede, voice hard as granite, "that humanity is an abandoned seedling of some ancient galactic civilization, and this being wants us to rejoin it." "She doesn't want anything," Arya corrected quietly. "She expects." "Semantics," muttered Minister Roddick of the Eurasian Federation. "This reads like an ultimatum wrapped in prophecy." "No," said Arya, locking eyes with him. "It's worse. She believes it's destiny." The silence that followed was heavy with implication. Dr. Lin, seated beside her, tapped a slow rhythm into the table surface, the only sign of his fraying composure. "She showed us 2 visions," Arya continued. "One of what we could become if we joined them, immortal, unified, transcendent. The other was Earth's likely future if we didn't collapse, division, decay. Both felt real. Both were terrifying. What assurance do we she'll leave us alone if we refuse? Asked the Mars Trade Council representative. None, Lynn replied. But she didn't threaten violence. She didn't need to. The psychological pressure alone, she understands us too well. Councilwoman Imani of the Pan-African Coalition leaned forward. And if she's right, if we were part of this empire and lost and forgotten, then we're not just humans. We're remnants of something we don't remember. That changes everything. It changes nothing, E growled. We've built our own future. We didn't ask for her. We owe her nothing. But she didn't come here to collect a debt, Arya said. She came to offer a way out. The room fell quiet again. Later that night, in the private quarters of the orbital UN station, Arya sat alone, replaying the Empress's face in her mind. There had been no malice in her expression, only inevitability, like a storm that did not hate what it destroyed. The door chimed. Kes entered, his usually relaxed posture tight with tension. You've got visitors, he said, off the record. She followed him into a side chamber, where two figures waited in the shadows. One was a tall woman in a midnight black uniform marked with no insignia. The other, older, wore a subtle augment interface along the side of his skull. Commander Vale, the woman said, stepping forward. My name is Director Hashin of the Initiative, Earth's unofficial response to unclassifiable threats. Congratulations, you just elevated us to DEFCON Mythic. Arya raised an eyebrow. I wasn't aware Earth had an initiative. You weren't supposed to be, Hashin said with a slight smile. But now that you've shaken hands with a galactic deity, things have escalated. The man beside her spoke next. I'm Dr. Kepler. I specialize in historical discontinuities, what we call memory fractures, events or knowledge lost across civilizations. The Empress's story checks out more than we'd like to admit. Lynn, who had followed them in, frowned. You're saying there's evidence humanity was seeded? Not direct, Kepler said. But myths, shared architectural anomalies, genetic markers, too many to dismiss. For decades we believed we were piecing together our own story. Turns out, someone may have edited the first chapters. Hashin handed Arya a tablet. It displayed a star map, ancient, burned into temple ruins in 3 separate continents, now overlaid with real coordinates. Many of the points corresponded to current exoplanet scans. One, however, pulsed bright red. What's this? Arya asked. A system called Velis 9, Hashin said. The Empress didn't mention it, but our scans caught a resonance trail from the Dauntless, something locked onto your ship during an encounter. That signal is now repeating from Velis 9. It's a breadcrumb, probably meant to be found. A trap, Kes muttered. Or an invitation, Lynn added. Arya looked between them. So we follow it? Hashin nodded. With discretion. We'll sponsor a stealth mission. Limited crew, minimal footprint. You'll have access to initiative assets. Why me? You're already part of the story, Kepler said, whether you want to be or not. Within days, the stealth cruiser Nomad departed lunar drydock under the guise of a research mission. It was quieter than the Dauntless, leaner, built for slipping past attention. With her went Arya, Lynn, Kes, and 3 hand-picked specialists, each cleared by the initiative. As they neared Velis 9, the tension grew. The planet was unremarkable from orbit. Dense jungle, high atmospheric interference, no visible structures. But the signal was clear and unmistakable, a rhythmic pulse embedded with layers of harmonic data. What's she playing at? Kes asked during the descent. She's not playing, Arya said. She's demonstrating. Their shuttle broke through the thick clouds and hovered over a clearing. At the center stood a monolith, black and smooth, pulsing in perfect synchrony with the signal. Lynn approached first, scanner in hand. The material isn't on any periodic table. It's not even quite material. It's phasing in and out of localized space. The team encircled it cautiously. Then, without warning, the monolith flared. Each of them saw something different. Arya stood again before Sindera, but this time not on the throne world. This time, they were on Earth, and Earth transformed. Towering spires of luminous alloy pierced the sky, the ocean shimmered with floating sanctuaries, and humans walked alongside biomechanical giants in harmony. "You see now," the Empress whispered beside her. "Not the promise. The memory." Arya turned. "Is this the future?" "No, it is your past." Elsewhere, Lynn saw symbols cascading through neural space, knowledge too vast to hold, equations that unraveled death, patterns that rewrote consciousness. Kes saw himself on a battlefield, weapon in hand, facing things with no names. The Empire wasn't alone out here. It had enemies, and the cost of defiance wasn't always isolation. Sometimes it was obliteration. When the light faded, the team lay scattered, breathless. No time had passed. "Commander," Lynn said, blinking tears from his eyes. She didn't just show us a vision. She uploaded history. Arya helped him to his feet. "Then Earth needs to know." Back aboard the Nomad, they secured the monolith's data burst and initiated their return. But Arya knew this wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a countdown. The Empress hadn't made an offer. She'd left a seed, one that would bloom, whether Earth wanted it or not. The silence after the beacon's deactivation was unnatural, dense, echoing, filled with the ghost of something vast and unfinished. Arya stood among the scattered fragments of light, still fading from the engine spires. The crystal structures no longer hummed, no longer reached for the minds around them, but she could still feel its residue inside her, a flickering pulse in the back of her thoughts, like a dream half remembered. Lynn wiped blood from his temple as he stood slowly, eyes wide with a distant kind of clarity. It's not entirely off. Some neural tendrils are still active, running low-level patterns. But the primary lattice interface has been severed. How long until it tries to reactivate? Arya asked, stepping toward him, her gaze never leaving the dormant core. "Could be hours, days, or not at all," he said. "Depends on whether it had a fallback routine." Roddick lay on the floor near the platform's edge, secured in polymer restraints, his breathing even but his expression unervingly calm. "You think you disrupted the awakening," he murmured. "You've only paused it. The Empire doesn't need technology to reach us. It only needs memory." Arya crouched beside him, her tone controlled. "Then it's memory we'll choose to confront, not surrender to." "You misunderstand," Roddick said, lips curling into a near smile. "You've already remembered. All of you. The beacon simply helped you see it." Outside the vault, the team gathered for extraction. Kes paced near the exit tunnel, eyes scanning telemetry feeds from the orbiting Nomad. "We've got problems." 3 initiative listening posts just went dark. One on Titan, one in the Kalahari Ray, and one in orbit over L5. All shut down within 90 seconds of each other. "Clean. No distress." "Sabotage?" Arya asked. Kes nodded grimly. "Or synchronization." Lynn exhaled slowly. "I think we were naive. We assumed the Empress wanted us to choose our place in the Empire. But maybe she never cared about consent. Maybe the engine wasn't just an invitation. Maybe it was a test to see how far we go." The dropship descended minutes later, cloaked beneath ion storms still writhing from the beacon's disruption. As they rose out of the vault, Arya looked down through the viewport, watching the black glass panels of the monolith recede into the distance. It felt less like victory and more like defiance. Temporary, fragile. Back aboard the Nomad, Earth Command had gone dark on standard channels, replaced by a narrow beam communique from Director Hashin. Her face was drawn, a fracture of urgency in her voice. "We have confirmation of an incoming object from deep space, non-ballistic, non-natural, and accelerating. Intercept predicted in 72 hours. Size unknown. Origin classified. We're rerouting all active fleets and deploying blackout protocols globally. You're to return to Earth immediately. Decryption codes follow." The transmission cut. No name, no signal, no visuals? Lynn asked. Kes turned from the console. "They're hiding the truth, or they don't know what it is yet." Roddick laughed softly from the brig chamber where he was now confined. "She's coming." Arya stared at him through the translucent wall. "The Empress?" He shook his head. No, not her. Them. The one she feared. A long silence passed. Arya reviewed the monolith's pulse signature again. There had been a second frequency, one that diverged from the Empire's patterns just before they shut it down. A brief spike, like a signal answering from beyond the boundary of a sender's reach. You think the beacon signaled something else? She asked Lynn. He hesitated. I think it echoed. And echoes go both ways. She turned to Kess. We need to decrypt the other layer. The part we dismissed as residual noise. It might not be random. Working side by side, they ran simulations, applying filters across multispectral bands. An hour passed. Then two. Finally, a fragment emerged. Fuzzy, distorted, but unmistakably artificial. A symbol, not the Empire, but of something older, more primal. Sharp angular forms overlaid with organic chaos. No identifiable linguistic root. Kess backed away from the display. That's not a message. It's a warning. Lynn paled. A warning left inside the beacon in case it was activated. Rodek's voice echoed from the cell behind them. You don't understand. The Empire isn't a protector. It's a wall. The beacon wasn't to connect. It was to contain. And now it's open. Arya's chest tightened. She moved back to her command chair, activating a private channel to Earth Command. Her request was immediate. Temporary elevation to Planetary Threat Response Authority. Access to Black Tier orbital defenses. Full authorization to prepare planetary shields. Denied, came the terse reply. Until threat is confirmed, escalation is unwarranted. She slammed a fist on the console. We just dismantled a lattice interface from an ancient galactic order, and now something is headed straight toward us. You want to wait for confirmation? You won't get a second chance. Still, no override came. Kess turned slowly. Then we prepare without permission. And they did. Over the next 20 hours, the Nomad systems were rerouted, turned into a mobile warning array. They deployed a series of autonomous signal flares across the solar plane, watching for interference, watching for change. And it came subtle at first. Variations in solar wind. Time dilation localized to deep space. Then a gravitational lensing anomaly where there should be none. Lynn stared at the incoming data. Something is bending space. Not moving through it. Bending around it. Kess added, and it's not coming fast. It's being pulled, like something else wants it here. On the final night before contact, Arya stood alone in the observation dome, Earth a soft blue arc beneath her. The silence was unbearable, the weight of inevitability pressing down with every breath. She felt no certainty, only the ache of decision. Would they become part of the Empire and sacrifice autonomy for safety? Or would they stand alone, sovereign and vulnerable? Behind her, Lynn stepped into the room. She was right, you know, he said quietly. A Sendera, about memory. It's not just what we carry. It's what we're shaped by. We've forgotten too much. Arya didn't turn. And if remembering makes us like them? He shrugged. Maybe we were like them. Once. She turned to face him, something flickering in her gaze. Then maybe it's time we become something else. The warning sirens blared then, soft but insistent. Contact, just outside Pluto's orbit. No visuals, only distortion. Kess's voice over comms. It's here. Lynn's voice dropped. What do we do? Arya walked back toward the command deck, her stride unbroken. We meet it, she said, not as children begging for answers, but as humans remembering who we are. And behind them, in the silence of space, something vast stirred, waiting, watching, listening.